First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the event, Future Tech, for this opportunity to present at Oman First Virtual Expo and Summit. Today, I'm going to talk about the development of e-commerce pre and post COVID-19 and how this pandemic directly impacted the role of e-commerce, not only on a social and personal level, but also how it affected essential services like healthcare, education, as well as business. COVID-19 forced us to reevaluate everyday activities like socializing with friends, exercising, shopping, taking our kids to schools and parks, accessing healthcare services, travel, and going to work. Suddenly, people across the world had to deal with increasingly limited resources and restricted mobility, prompting an explosion of innovations as business owners and service providers are attempting to adopt alternative strategies to compensate for a sudden drop in revenue. Sorry about that. To most of us, electronic commerce or e-commerce is a business model, allowing online electronic transactions, communication between firms and individuals to buy and sell products, services, and commodities over the internet. In fact, this is actually slowly becoming a post-pandemic understanding or a definition of e-commerce. Yes, somehow it does remain theoretically accurate. However, its scope has expanded exponentially into what else can we e-commerceify and keep it, on growing, and it keeps on growing. Today, we see all sorts of businesses and services e-commercialized, with more and more businesses joining the stream. And consequently, new and business concepts are emerging or being adopted, such as BOPIS, like buy online and pick up a store, or curbside pickups. Similar concepts are being established and gaining ground as we speak as well. Previously, post-pandemic, such models and concepts might have been more commonly found in tech-savvy countries due to technological advancement. But today, due to necessity, they are booming globally. So globalization, even of this kind of concept, are even hitting the poorest of nations. Business to consumer door deliveries, like online shopping, mobile payments, online transactions are no longer limited to certain nations or demographics anymore, as everyone with internet access are asking the same questions. How can I make e-commerce work for me? If we look at, generally speaking, and when most people think of e-commerce, they think of the purchase of goods or services by use of the internet. However, there are more specific ways to refer to the type of online transactions by mentioning which e-commerce categories the transfer falls under. There are 6 basic types of e-commerce, as you can see from the slide in front of you. Business to business, business to commerce, consumer to consumer, consumer to business, business to administration, and consumer to administration. And all of them represent a different purchasing dynamic. The most common of them, perhaps, the most form of e-commerce is B2C, which is a business to consumer. B2C e-commerce deals with electronic business relationship between businesses and consumers. Many people enjoy this venue of e-commerce because it allows them to shop around for the best price, read consumer reviews, and often find like different products that they wouldn't otherwise be exposed to in the retail world. This e-commerce category also enables businesses to develop a more personalized relationship with their consumers, with their customers, and establish a retaining customer base more firmly. Business to business, which B2B, is an e-commerce like a category that refers to all electronic transactions of goods and sales are conducted between two companies or establishments. This type of e-commerce typically explains the relationship between the producers and a product and the wholesalers who advertise the product for purchase to consumers. Sometimes this allows wholesalers to stay ahead of their competition. Consumer to administration and business to administration are two categories that are like more recent kind of e-commerce services. For instance, as consumer to administration is a popular e-commerce category because it encompasses all electronic transactions between individuals and public administrations. While business to administration category refers to the transactions between companies and public administrations. Consumer to business, now this is the most traditional form of e-commerce, which is called C2B. It's e-commerce is between consumer making their services or products available to companies for purchase. For example, like you have the graphic designers customizing a company logo or a photographer taking photos for an e-commerce website. Consumer to consumer, this level of consumer encompasses all electronic transactions that take place between consumers or individuals. Generally, these transactions are provided by online platforms, such as PayPal's, or often conducted through the use of social media networks as Facebook and websites. Would you believe it if you were told that e-commerce is not a new invention? The idea of the infrastructure was already in place since 1994, yet the most common obstacle e-commerce boom was facing was the perception that e-commerce security and e-payment infrastructure were not mature yet. COVID was the catalyst that launched e-commerce into the economic stratosphere. It is no longer only the tech savvy and youth that are shopping, but it's like housewives now, hospitals, small shopkeepers, schools, librarians, farmers, almost anyone and everyone started to explore this new and exciting paradigm shift in business and commerce. Although the e-commerce boom was attributed to the introduction of internet to the public in 1991, the concept of e-commerce was first introduced in 1979 by Michael Aldrich, who was an English inventor, innovator, and entrepreneur. In 1979, he invented online shopping to enable online transaction processing between consumers and businesses, or between the business and another. A technique later was called e-commerce. We have all witnessed, depending of course on your age when you were born, or let's say heard or read about the successful development of many ideas and initiatives that led to the success of companies like Amazon and eBay in 1995. And now, the success of the likes of Alibaba.com and the Chinese online global retail boom. As an example of the COVID effect, Amazon's second quarter revenue of 2020 was up by 40% to 88.9 billion of a net income of 5.2 billion, compared to a revenue of the same quarter of last year in 2019 of 63.4 billion. E-commerce is clearly becoming a necessity, even for big commercial players to stay relevant. We are also hearing the ugly side of the stories, specifically in commercial airlines, hotels, and retail outlets losing business, letting go of employees, or even filing for bankruptcy, which proves that change is here and being ready and prepared is becoming more and more relevant. For example, the event we are in today. In the global scale, Oman, a relatively small country in terms of population, about 4.9 million, in 2019 had 77% internet penetration and 135% mobile subscriptions. And with 51% of the population holding active social accounts, and 39% of them are operated from mobile phones. In 2018, Deloitte Middle East reported only 15% of businesses in the Middle East have an online presence, and almost 90% of the online purchases in the region are shipped from abroad. According to the technology research company Gartner, predicting that this trend is expected to reverse soon with the launch of large regional e-commerce players. The entry of major international players such as Amazon through the acquisition of companies like Stock.com and increasing its technology adoption is playing a major role in the paradigm shift. According to Forbes Middle East, Amar Mormina Intelligence in 2018, online sales in the Middle East are estimated to account to only 2% of the overall retail sales. This is much lower than the 15% in developed countries and markets. And the untapped potential of e-commerce player, like businesses, is huge in this market. According to Forbes as well, coronavirus accelerated the shift to e-commerce by 5 years ahead. So the expectations that e-commerce will be more mature and established platform is actually being brought forward by almost 5 years. As the pandemic has reshaped life as we know, it also accelerated many trends. The biggest of these trends being e-commerce. The shift toward e-commerce was happening before COVID-19. But according to new data from IBM, the pandemic has, as I said earlier, accelerated this e-commerce or consumer shift toward e-commerce by the 5 years. So e-commerce is projected to grow nearly 20% year over year, or year on year in 2020. This growth was even more pronounced at the beginning of the pandemic. Like, for example, for the US retail e-commerce was up by 44% in Q2. And also in Q2, Walmart e-commerce sales were up by 97%, and Target grew in the same day fulfillment services by 273%. The top categories, according to the US markets, have gravitated toward during this shift are alcohol, home improvement materials, and groceries. And clothing, while the clothing market seeing significant decline. Here, I would like to share with you a local example that exemplify the power of adoption of circumstances. A local business owner opened a small shop providing sewing and craft supplies just before the pandemic and had to face possible closure due to a lack of customers caused by the lockdown. The owner had to decide to wait and face possible closure or adapt and thrive and survive. Tafta, located in a remote suburb of the outskirts of Muscat, recognized the impact of e-commerce or e-commerceifying their business could have on their business, and in a bid to survive, they diversified their business approach to attract revenue using the immediate accessibility to customer through social media. And in direct contrast to many other small businesses, they had to close their doors. Tafta now has expanded to such an extent that they had to employ extra staff to cope with delivery needs and online business demands. This is but one example of the integrated role social media plays in e-commerce. Of course, local lawmakers like Central Bank of Oman, finance organizations like commercial banks, and service providers play a major role in enabling ideas and driving the economic boost. Now I would like to share with my audience a short video that shows us the power of innovation, innovative ideas in the e-world of today.
Confused? Let me take you back a few steps. You haven't heard of Stevenage Football Club, right? Well, neither had we. But we realized that even though they're at the bottom of England's 4th division, they were going to appear in the same video game that all the expensive players were going to be in. And that's when, almost 2 years ago, we decided to sponsor Stevenage. Because if we put our logo on their real shirt, we would definitely have our logo in the game. Introducing the Stevenage Challenge. Gamers across the world immediately started choosing Stevenage, signing the best players to our team and playing with them. For every goal they shared on Twitter, we gave them rewards. The news took the gaming community by storm.
Two of the best kids in the game, the Stevenage, they have Burger King as their sponsor.
Oh, Lawrence! Oh my God!
Football food, what could possibly be better?
Il est trop beau, les gars, Smith!
Just like that, our small team in real life turned into the biggest team online. So, gamers chose the best players in the world to play for Stevenage.
It's not every night this comes along.
BK Sports. It's in the flame.
Hope you have enjoyed that video. And as you can see from that video, the power of diversification in today's world and innovation, especially innovative ideas in the use of e-marketing and e-commerce into changing your own ways of doing business. And now finally, in conclusion, I would like to conclude to say in COVID-19 caused major disruptions in all walks of human lives. The most affected of those are the retail and service sectors, like travel, tourism, food, private education, and even sports, and many, many others. However, as much as it was a disruptive and destructive, like pandemic or as time of the mankind, humankind, we also saw many opportunities where social media became more intimately linked to e-commerce platforms today than any time previously. Social media and targeted advertising became the main source of advertising besides websites and almost surpassing it. Customers and businesses are becoming more astute and demanding. Shoppers are more specific and aware of what alternatives they have besides traditional options. People are becoming more and more comfortable to explore online options due to COVID-19 enforced precautions. Fear of online shopping and buying is rapidly vanishing. Services, payments, and delivery options has improved due to competition between service providers, and it will continue to develop. Fourth industrial revolution became clearly the next natural transition in mankind history toward global development. As you can see from the picture in my final slide, the bubble we created around ourselves to keep COVID-19 out is becoming the think tank vehicle to a new future. Hope my presence was useful. Thank you. My presentation was useful. Thank you for your time and to Future Tech for this opportunity.